Good morning. My name is Matthew Behnke. I'm an adult reference librarian at the Kokomo-Howard Public Library, and welcome to today's program, Genealogy Research with Find a Grave, Part 2. Last month, I gave an overview of the many features on Find a Grave and some different ways of researching your ancestors on the site. Today, I'm going to focus on how to create memorials, upload images, merge records, and suggest edits. At the end of my talk, I'm also going to give a brief lesson on etiquette on Find a Grave. So to start off with, I'm going to go to findagrave.com, where I'm already at. And you see this lovely landing page with a little Memorial Day, probably Arlington National Cemetery. Nope, Golden Gate National Cemetery. So I'm going to scroll down here, and at the bottom here, I have Add a Memorial. So this is going to be my quick start to adding a memorial. There's several places on Find a Grave's landing page where you can add a memorial, but this is just the easiest since I'm right here at findagrave.com. So I'll click Add a Memorial. And so today I'm going to give a demonstration on how to add a memorial on a memorial that I actually created last October. It is Dr. John Wesley Posey. Dr. John Wesley Posey was a famous abolitionist in Petersburg, Pike County, Indiana. I made this memorial while I worked at the Pike County Public Library in Petersburg, Indiana. And Dr. Posey is buried in Old Town Cemetery, which is literally in the backyard of the Pike County Public Library. Now, he had never had a memorial created for him, and there's some mystery surrounding his burial and what happened to his memorial marker. But there is quite a bit of documentation that he was in fact buried at Old Town Cemetery. So in addition to being an abolitionist, he worked as a medical doctor, and he was a volunteer surgeon in the Civil War for the Union Army. Most notably, he served at the Battle of Shiloh, which is one of the bloodiest battles in the Civil War. So he saw a lot of carnage. But he was a business owner as well. He owned a coal mine in Petersburg, and his coal mine was located near his home, which was right on the bluffs of the White River. And he helped over 1,000 slaves to escape to freedom. He actually used his coal mine to house runaways, and they say that he was one of the few members of the Underground Railroad who actually transported slaves underground. And so, in addition to being a doctor and a business owner, he was also an elected official. He had a lot of standing in the community, so pretty remarkable. He was also one of the founders of the Anti-Slavery League in Indiana, which one of the things that they did was send undercover operatives to slave country in Kentucky. And a lot of times they were incognito as like peddlers or merchants, and they helped to free slaves. Pretty remarkable man and pretty remarkable work. So kind of amazing. His wife is buried. Her marker I actually took a photo of a couple of years ago, and I took his two of his children who died young are also buried in the cemetery. But he did not have a memorial, so I really wanted to rectify that and provide some documentation. So as you see here, this is one of the images that I found. I actually took it from Wikipedia, but this photo is on some other online repositories and more, you could say more credible sites than Wikipedia. And here is his obituary, stating that he passed away on August 12th, 1884. This is page 2, which cites that he was buried in the Old Town Cemetery. Here's another document that states that he was buried in Town Cemetery. This is actually an interesting piece of documentation that kind of adds more mystery to his burial. So his original headstone was probably destroyed as a result of vandals. I won't go into detail about that, but his family petitioned to actually have a military marker placed on his burial site in 1937. So he'd already been gone for about 50 years. And for whatever reason, the headstone either was never delivered or it was vandalized again. But this is a little bit more documentation about Dr. Posey, assistant surgeon for the United States Army. And these are his direct descendants. I think it's his granddaughter. And then there's one more photo. So for a standard memorial, you can add 5 photos. If you sponsor a memorial for $5, you'll have all ads taken off, and you can have up to 10, I believe. But for this one, 5 photos is all I can do. This is a photo of Dr. Posey later in life, and I got this from Wikimedia. And this is also on a few different repositories that kind of boost the credentials for Dr. Posey and help him to get famous designation. So I'm going to go back to the memorial page. And I'm going to show you how I actually went and created this memorial. So there was that little ad memorial that I went to at the beginning. I have to type in the cemetery name and the cemetery location for Dr. Posey. So it was Old Town Cemetery, also known as Miley Cemetery. And it was in Petersburg, Pike, Indiana. And here it comes up. It's like I've already done this or something. There's an option right here. If you're creating a memorial you can actually create a memorial for somebody who's not buried in a cemetery. If you click on this, you can get the options of cremated, buried at sea, donated to medical science. So that's just a heads up that you can actually create memorials, and I have created memorials myself for people that I knew who were cremated. One of my friends was donated to medical science. And so that's another. There's some other ways that you can memorialize people, even if they are not buried in a cemetery. And in the case of this one, there's no headstone. I'm going to hit continue, and there is Old Town Cemetery. Click on that, and I'm going to enter some fields. Okay, and then I'm also going to create a prefix because he was a medical doctor, and I want to give him that acknowledgement, that respect. You can also do this for reverends. As you saw, judge. There's a number of designations. There's his gender. Now I'm going to very slowly and carefully enter his birth and death dates. I found from accurate information that he was born on the 10th of April, 1801 in Abbeville County. So 10 April, 1801. April 1801, Abbeville County, South Carolina, and then 12 August 1884. See, it says right there in the obituary, 12 August 1884, Petersburg, Pike County, Indiana. 12 August 1884. 12 August 1884. And there's Petersburg, Pike County, Indiana. All right. So I kind of showed you that very slowly and deliberately because you really want to be careful when you're creating memorial, and you really want to be careful with the fields. If you don't catch it right away, you're going to have some incorrect information on your memorial, and it's just a really good practice to be careful. Um, there's plenty of incomplete records on Find a Grave, or inaccurate records. So just be as careful as possible. And I happen to have his complete birth range, but you do not have to. If I didn't have his day, I could still say April 1801, or if I didn't have his day or the month, you can have 1801. Or if you don't have any information, you can leave it unknown and you can still create a memorial for someone. So here is bio information, and this is where I actually wrote myself a biography for Dr. Posey using the structure that Find a Grave requires for a famous memorial. But here, a lot of times, this is where the actual obituary would be. And for a lot of newer memorials, this is where the bio would be. And a lot of times people copy this information from a funeral home website. So for here in Kokomo, see a lot of memorials that have shirleyandStout.com, or if it's an obituary from the Kokomo Tribune, there'll be kokomotribune.com. And I really recommend this as a practice that will not only make your research more credible as a contributor, but it just helps other genealogists. It's almost useless to post an obituary and not have information about where it came from. So if people can't link back to it, it's really not as reliable, and it also decredits you as a contributor. So down here, we've got some more information. We've got burial information. So it was Old Town Cemetery, which is an already established cemetery in Find a Grave. I can additionally enter cemetery plot number. I happen to know where his wife was at. I believe she's in row 8, but I don't know that he's buried there for facts, so I'm not going to put plot number. But this is really, really useful if you're creating a memorial especially in a large cemetery. And then there's also burial coordinates. So if you use the Find a Grave app, you can actually pin a GPS location to a specific headstone. This is also a really advised practice for genealogy. Find a Grave only makes it optional, but it is actually part of the genealogical proof standard that each grave photo include in addition to a photo, also have GPS coordinates. And the genealogy cemetery website Billion Graves actually requires that every single headstone, you have to take a photo using their app, which automatically pins GPS coordinates. And next month, I'm going to be giving a talk on Billion Graves. So that is just an option in Find a Grave, but it's a very helpful option if you're able to do that. And then I did also click that this is a famous person, and he was famous as a social reformer, as an abolitionist. So now I'm going to go and add memorial. Now, obviously, this is a duplicate, and I'm only duplicating it for this example. So I am going to add the memorial, but after I'm done with all this, I will be deleting it. And next, I'm going to show you how I added the images. So I actually downloaded all of my images, and I'm going to go here, click here to add photos. And now I'm just going to go through. This is just going to take a minute. It kind of selects it slowly. And just one more document. Like I said, I can do a total of 5 documents for a normal memorial, one that has not been sponsored. Okay, so now I have all of the photos uploaded. It's in a slightly different order than I had before. There is a way that you can rearrange. Actually, right here it is, arrange photos. So here I can go, and because I did it, I actually inverted it. You're supposed to go, um, I was supposed to do first, last, and last first. Um, and so here's the order that I had it before. That's a kind of a handy feature with Find a Grave that is a little bit more recent, where you can arrange the photos. And with something like the obituary, I want to make sure the obituary is in the right order. So this is the first page, and this is the second page. So now I go ahead and I save order. And so now I have it looking how I want it to look. There's a few other options though. If I actually had the grave photo, I'd want to have the grave photo marked down here. This is the person photo. And I could also, and so I have it clicked as set as default as the cover photo. So that's good to have in there as well. I showed you on my completed records, here in the caption is where I actually posted the URL or the file name. So I have like the JPEG where it came from. So you'd want to post that in there under the image caption. And this is where I put the date, and it was from the Pike County Democrat. And here I'm actually going to switch it to other. It's not going to change the order, but this is just something that I've always done so that the other comes after the grave photo. And I also do this when I'm adding so that I don't, if I'm adding to somebody else's memorial and they have a photo of the person, I can add a death certificate, or I can add, like here, I'm adding an obituary, but the obituary won't show up in front of the grave photo. And I just think that with a program like Find a Grave, you really want to utilize, you want to be respectful. You want to be respectful of the dead, but you also want to be respectful to other contributors and try to not step on people's toes. This is another other. And for this one, it's a person, but I actually select other so that it doesn't interfere with the other cover photo. I like the first photo better, so I wanted that to be the cover photo. So here we go. I've got everything in place like I want it to be. And so that was my demonstration on how to add images. So next, I'm going to show you how to actually merge a record and how to edit a record. Now, these are for memorials that were not created by you. So if I wanted to edit this record, all I'd have to do is hit edit, and I can do whatever I want. In the case of this record, I'm going to be deleting it soon because I created it and because I've created a duplicate record. But let me show you how to edit and merge records when they are not your own creations. So I'm going to go back to Find a Grave's landing page, and I'm going to search one of my own ancestors that I found a few errors on. The first person that I'm going to search, her name is Martha Behnke, but on her record, her name is misspelled. And I wanted to fix that so that it's easier for me to search. So I actually included a wildcard. If you remember from last program, I showed you how to do some searching with wildcards. This wildcard, in addition to covering variant spellings, it will also cover misspellings in the case of this ancestor. So this is Martha. Since there are other Martha Behnke's out there, I want to give her cemetery location. I happen to know that she's buried in Montcalm County, Michigan. So hopefully this will give me the specific record that I'm looking for. And voila, sure enough, Martha Elizabeth Behnke. Now, what's wrong with this record? You wouldn't know if you don't have my surname, but this is misspelled. It should be Behnke, and it said it is Benhnke. Now, I won't really be too hard on the memorial creator because, to be honest, everybody butchers my name. I'm used to it my whole life, but for the sake of genealogy, I'm a bit more persnickety because this is essentially a lost record because of the misspelling. I happen to be able to look for it within the cemetery, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to suggest an edit. And before I even do that, I'm actually going to make this record a little bit more substantial by adding a death certificate. I found a death certificate for Martha, and it confirmed the information that this contributor entered for her birth and death date. But just to make it a little bit stronger, I'm going to go ahead well, let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, this is the death certificate. So I'm going to add other like I did before. And so this is the death certificate for Martha. Let me make sure that I got it right here. So I'm going to go under one more. Yep. So Martha Elizabeth Behnke. Now, in addition to confirming some of other information, and I just want to note that death certificates are not always correct. So you want to verify even a death certificate with other records. But this shows the spelling of Martha's name as being Behnke. So I gave this in part so that I have some more documentation for the memorial creator who will see that I added a document and it has the spelling that I'm going to suggest. So right now, I'm going to go here and I'm simply going to take the N out. And now I have Behnke, the correct spelling. And now I'm just going to scroll down and I'm going to hit Save Suggestions. So now it's up to the memorial creator. Sometimes people will simply fix edits, and but other times they will want documentation. And I've added documentation, which is really the best practice for Find a Grave, to add documentation for support for an edit. So that's Martha Elizabeth Behnke. And I'm going to go now to the cemetery where she's buried, Coral Cemetery. And I'm just going to search the surname because I happen to have another ancestor that's buried near here that also has a problematic record. So here we go, and we have Frederick Banke, who's actually Martha's father, I believe. Here is one record for Frederick Banke. And as you see here, there's no grave photo. If I click on this, this is actually Frederick's death certificate. But I have complete information on his birth and death. 25 January 1851. 25 January 1851. Death, 26 September 1928. Montcalm County. And over here you see date of death, September 26, 1928. So that's a nice record. Let me show you why I'm showing you this record. If I scroll down farther, I see another Fred Banke. Son of a gun. There's another Fred Banke, and there's Martha, whom I just fixed or sent a suggestion for the spelling of her name. But this record here is a duplicate, and it doesn't have the complete information. So what I'm going to do here is suggest a merge so that there's only one record. So how I'm going to do that, I am on the record that I want to keep. So on this record page under suggest edit, I'm going to hit report duplicate. And I've already copied and pasted the other memorial. So the other memorial, their ID is 4627965. Remember how I said that each memorial has a unique identifier? This is really useful in the case of duplicate memorials. So I simply copied and pasted that memorial's ID, and then I hit continue. And now it shows them side by side. So this is the memorial that is incorrectly spelled. It also has only incomplete information. And this memorial has a death certificate. I actually already have my own grave photos that I'm going to add for this one. So I'm going to boost that record. So now all I have to do is hit suggest this merge. And I'm going to have the administrators for Find a Grave are going to decide whether or not this is a correct merge. And so now I suggest it. So voila, there you go. I did this live. Just a few other notes that I want to make before wrapping up this session. If you suggest an edit and you send a message, please be polite. This might seem pretty obvious, but some people get pretty snarky on Find a Grave. And if somebody sends you a snarky message, I always just try to be polite and thank them for pointing out an error. Sometimes errors happen. I've definitely made mistakes as a contributor on Find a Grave. So that's one of the challenging aspects of the internet in general. Social media is conduct and politeness. And I think in the realm of genealogy, everybody's kind of working towards the same goal, and we all want to have correct information. So if you are a contributor, try to be as polite as possible if you send a message. If you send an edit, try to support it with documentation. Like I said before, not everybody's going to even check your documentation. They might just blindly approve. But that's another piece of etiquette that I think is really important on Find a Grave, supporting your edits with documentary evidence. And if you send a message, just be polite. So I hope this has been a helpful presentation. Please come and join me next month for my presentation on billion graves. And if you watch this presentation and you enjoy it, please like, maybe share it even. And I'd love to see comments. If there's any suggestions or just comments, please let me know how you've liked this. And thank you very much and have a great day.